Good evening and welcome to the September 8th, 2020 Planning Board meeting. As a preliminary matter, this is John Farmer, Chair of the Planning Board, and with me tonight I have Josh Morris and David Fields as support staff from the town's planning department. Permit me to confirm and do a roll call that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jim Sears.
Here.
Peg Zielinski.
Here.
Lou George.
Here.
Tori Adler.
Here.
And I understand Nathaniel Sears is absent tonight. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Josh Morris.
Present.
David Fields.
I'm here.
And we've got the anticipated speakers tonight. So for 315, 317 Maple Street, I believe Scott Cameron's presenting. Scott, can you hear us?
I am here. I can hear you.
Okay, great. My understanding from Pond Street, Peabody Avenue, Joe Small and Mark Hannon, are they on? Can they hear us?
Hi, this is Joe Small. I'm on.
Okay. And from 54 Cherry Hill Drive, there's a number of people, but my understanding is Gerald Blanchett and Erica Otis will be presenting on behalf of 54 Cherry Hill Drive. Can they hear us and are they present?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Terrific. So let me just make an introductory remarks, and then we'll start the agenda. Good evening. This is an open meeting of the Danvers Planning Board. It is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings, in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening remotely via WebEx app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided the members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting ground rules. We now turn into the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called further. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to converse with one another, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email address for public comment, publiccomments@danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments, and they will be provided read out loud after staff has confirmed their name and address. All emails must contain the date and phrase Planning Board in the subject line. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting tonight will be conducted by a roll call vote. So the first item on the agenda under other matters is 315-317 Maple Street, requested by Mr. Ash for endorsement of a Form A plan to move the lot lines 315 Maple Street, map 33, lot 20, and 317 Maple Street, Sylvan Street, map 33, lot 19. So with that, Scott, I'll turn the floor to you, Mr. Cameron.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board, for having me tonight. I'm here on behalf of the Ash family and the Velasquez family. Really, this is just a completion of the title transfers associated with the Beaverbrook subdivision. It's to reconcile this boundary between the two properties to match the lotting plan that was, it's actually the same lot lines that were on the lotting plan approved for the subdivision. And there was, if you recall, a second plan that was specifically for conveyancing the parcels. There was about 20 different little pieces that were conveyed throughout the properties. And this is the last piece that we need to finish up to match what was on the lotting plan. The properties enjoy frontage on Maple Street, a public street. There's no change to any of the frontage setbacks. The areas still meet the minimum area, and the shapes are all at least as good as they were before, although non-conforming with the lot shape. But with all respects, this meets in my opinion, the qualifications for an approval not required endorsement, and that's what we're here to ask you for tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks for putting the plan up. That's helpful. Lou, why don't I start with you? Any questions?
I guess the only question I did have, just initially, I know this may be a little bit of the history of it. When was this? This was approved last year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Tori, any questions?
No questions, no concerns.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
No questions. I did represent the buyer of this, so I recused myself from this development, but I did not represent either one of these parties. So I think it's fine that I can vote on this, just to let you know. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Peg, questions?
No questions.
Okay, the chair has no questions, but I will entertain a motion to accept the application as presented. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Jim, second by Tori. Peg? Do you endorse the plan? So this is the vote for approval, Peg. Did we lose Peg?
I think she is muted.
Oh, I'm muted. I'm sorry. Yes, I endorse the plan.
Okay. Lou?
Yes, I endorse the plan.
Jim?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
And the chair is in favor as well. So thank you very much.
Thank
Scott?
you all. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Okay, the next item is 6 Pond Street, 1113 Peabody Avenue, requested by Mark Hannon for endorsement of a Form A plan to move lot lines where 6 Pond Street, map 51, lot 6 would gain 680 square feet, and 11 Peabody Ave, map 51, lot 8 would gain 949 square feet. Both increases in square footage would be originally from 13 Peabody Avenue, map 51, lot 7. So I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Small.
Hi, again, this is Joe Small at Hancock. I don't have a camera, but I think that's to everyone's advantage. What we're doing is we are dividing the property currently owned by the Gilligan Family Irrevocable Trust. They own the lot at the corner of Pond Street and Peabody Street, and it's really got a funky configuration. It goes off in some bizarre directions. So what we're doing here is really not only selling off two pieces of the property to the neighbors, but we're, in the end, leaving a more rectangular lot. But it's really, the neighbors are gaining from this because they really want the extra property, and it doesn't affect the Gilligan's property with respect to zoning.
Hey, Joe, can you get closer to your microphone? We're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, how's that?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, sorry about that. In this plan, I tried to highlight it up. I'm glad you got it, to try to get a little bit example of what we're talking about here, but highlighted in yellow, but it really looks more orange. is the original shape of the lot, and you can see over on the northerly side, it sort of sticks out with a finger. And what we're doing is we're eliminating that, so Mr. Hannon gets the back part of his property, and the Haddons get the piece that's to the east. And that's it. You know, luckily it does not affect zoning for the existing lot, so everybody's happy.
Okay, so I'll open it up to questions. Jim, I'll start with you. Do you have any questions on this application?
No, I'm fine with it.
Peg?
I'm fine with it.
Tori?
No, no concerns.
And Lou?
Just a question in terms of what's the existing square footage of 6 Pond and 11 Peabody?
Oh, that's a good question. I can probably give you 6 Pond, but I have to look it up on my plan. Hold on.
I saw what was being added, and I saw what's the square footage of the existing Gilligan property, but I did not see the square footage of the others.
Currently, the 6 Pond Street is 8791 square feet.
Okay.
And the Haddons, I don't have a plan that shows it in its current configuration, but it's at least 38,000 square feet.
Okay.
It's a little bit bigger than that.
Okay. Thank you. That was the only question I had. I have no concerns about this.
The Haddons property goes way back, much further than you see on.
Okay. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions either. I'm comfortable with the application. So I will put it out to a vote. Is there a motion to accept the application as presented?
So moved.
Who was that, Tori? Thank you. Is there a second?
Lou George, second.
Okay. So let me do the roll call vote. Jim Sears?
Yes.
Peg Zelinski?
Yes,
Tori Adler?
Yes.
Lou George?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well, as the chair. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the next items on the agenda, I'd like to try to do them both at the same time, if that's acceptable. We have 13 Essex Street, which is back for a request for continuance for their site plan, as well as their request for special permits. So I'll read the request for site plan approval submitted by Harold Carey for property at 13 Essex Street pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaws. Said properties in the Danvers Town Center Live Work District, DTC-L/W zoning district. The applicant is proposing additional parking on the site. And then there's also a request for special permit and site plan approval submitted by Earl Carey for property at 13 Essex Street pursuant to Section 18.4.C, 18.5.D.6.C, 18.13, and Section 4 of the zoning bylaw. Said property is in the Danvers Town Center Live Work District, zoning district, assessors map 43, lot 423. The applicant has requested that both matters be continued without discussion at the applicant's request to the planning board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. David or Josh, can we do both of these under one motion, or do we have to do them separately?
I think at this point, it'd be fine to do them both under one motion. It's the same address, same assessor's parcel number, and we've been with this project now for quite some time.
Yeah. So before we do that, does anyone have any questions? I know there's no representative here tonight, but is there any questions for staff on this request? I mean, my question really, David, is why aren't they here? Didn't they want this date for tonight? Can you just give us a little?
They did based on the last meeting. Josh can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way the scenario is going to play out with this is they'll most likely withdraw one of these applications. I think they need to determine whether or not they're still going to park the project with tandem parking. So that may necessitate keeping the special permit option.
Okay.
So if not, we'd have to re-advertise that special permit, which would be costly, but more to the point, it would put us weeks back again. So,
Okay.
Josh, if you have any other updates.
Yeah, sure. I do, I think in preparing for the meeting, I did receive an email with new plans, you know, for the project. And we will likely, I think that they will be in front of the board, I think at the September 22nd meeting. I haven't had a chance to review them.
Okay. All right, thanks, Josh. Any other questions for staff? If not, I'll accept a motion to continue the site plan approval and special permit for 13 Essex Street.
John,
Is there
John, I just have one comment.
Go ahead, Jim.
I just think as a protocol, applicants should be present, especially where they only have to be present. They don't even have to physically be at the meeting. They should have been here. I understand they've been to the last meetings, but they have 2 items on the agenda and they're not present. They want the board to vote. So I think just for staff purposes from now on, you know, I'm willing to accept the continuance, but they need to at least have someone on the phone or someone on Zoom so we can ask them questions if we need to. You know, to not show up for either one of these is a little ridiculous. But I mean, I don't want to hold it up. I know they're trying to do something over there, but I think protocol, they should have a representative on Zoom. It doesn't take much to be on Zoom. That's all.
Okay, good. Other comments? I don't disagree with Jim either. So with that, I'll accept a motion to continue to September 22nd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, let me just do the roll call vote. Jim Sears,
Yes.
Peg Zawinski,
Yes.
Lou George,
Yes.
Tori Adler,
Yes.
and I'm in favor for the continuance as well. So, Josh, if you can just, you know, I know they'll be here on the 22nd, but it's important that, you know, we kind of move this thing along if we possibly can.
Sure. Yeah, I might have indicated to them because they weren't presenting tonight and there was no like public hearing process. I indicated that maybe their presence wasn't necessary, but from the feedback from the group, it seems like maybe it would have been beneficial for them to be here. So that one, that might have been from, you know, my recommendation that their not being here was from me, but they will very likely, if any, no matter what, there will be something on September 22nd to at least give us an update of where things stand.
Okay. So the next item is 188 Elliott Street, request for approval of a major modification to an approved site plan submitted by Christ the Redeemer Church for property at 188 Elliott Street. The applicant proposed to expand the church facility and associated site modifications. Canvas Assessors Map 53, Lot 218, Beverly Assessors Map 28, Lot 5. The applicant has asked to continue the public hearing without discussion, scheduled for, again, Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. In my understanding, it's probably the same thing, Josh. There's no representative from 188 Elliott Street, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Given that, is there a motion to continue the public hearing to September 22nd, 2020 for the major modification at 188 Elliott Street?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Let me do the roll call again. Jim Sears,
Yes.
Peg Zawinski,
Yes.
Tori Adler,
Yes.
Lou George,
Yes.
and I'm in favor of the continuation. The next item is 82 Sylvan Street. So this is, you know, procedurally, Josh or David, this one is interesting since no one is here. are we just moving this and not opening the public hearing, or are they asking us to open the public hearing?
Josh, did you have any updates from them, or do you want me to?
No, you could jump in. I mean, I would have, David, from our kind of internal conversations, from my perspective, probably opening the public hearing, we probably shouldn't, but I would defer to you, I guess.
Sure. So I think where we're at this point, they look like they need further relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals before they even get to the Planning Board. So I think Josh is correct. Probably not opening the matter is for the best. It's likely they'll withdraw. This project may be back in some other form, depending on what happens with the Zoning Board, or you may never see it again if they choose to go with 2 units instead of 3. So.
Okay. So administratively then, David, we just don't have to do anything. We just,
yeah, the project unfortunately wasn't ripe to come in before you. But again, with the applications being as they are, we had to hit the newspaper. So
yeah, okay. So there's no formal action that we need to take tonight on this.
Not now, no.
Okay, that makes it easy then. All right. So the next item is 54 Cherry Hill Drive. Request for major modification to an approved site plan by Hodas Construction Corporation for property at 54 Cherry Hill Drive. Said property is in the Industrial 2 zoning district. The applicant proposes new HVAC mechanical units in the rear of the building. Assessors map 29, lot 11. And I believe Erica Hodas is going to present on behalf of the applicant. So Erica, I'll turn the floor to you.
Yep, I think it will be a combination of me and Jerry Blanchett from H.L. Turner. My name is Erica Hodas. I really appreciate you putting us on the agenda tonight. I'm representing Millipore Sigma, who occupies 17 Cherry Hill Drive. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and what Millipore manufactures, which is single-use technology for major pharmaceutical companies, they need to expand their assembly line, and they have leased the building at 54 Cherry Hill Drive from 1010 Cherry Hill on behalf, and then RJ Kelly is acting as the landlord. We are proposing the major modification as a structure, a steel structure that we would be putting in the back of the building. Part of this would be on this plan is what we're showing is the existing structures that are there, which equal, I believe, 3,966 square feet. And that what we're adding, and that would be including any impervious surfaces. There's some block buildings, some concrete pads, and anything that we are adding would equal to or be less than the 3,966 square feet. Including the mechanical platform, which is considered a structure, and that will be below. If you can click through a couple, I think we have the sight line, but our major HVAC units for the clean room that we're building for Millipore will be sitting on the platform. The platform will be grading. The mechanical units will be sitting on top of the grading. We will also have crushed stone underneath. It will be below the roof line, so you will not be able to see it from the front of the building. I think if you came down the hill from the Beverly side, you also wouldn't be able to see it. Yeah, so if you came from, on this plan, the right-hand side, it would still be back. It'd be right in front of the solar array that you can see on the ground outside. It would be about 4 feet off the building. It's 100 by 35 feet. And will house all the major HVAC units. And so on that plan, we're demoing out all of the existing structures that are there from the previous tenant, or maybe possibly the original tenant, I believe. So the major modification is the structure itself. We were requesting waivers for a few of the other items because we're only adding that in the back. And the repouring of the pads as described. And Jerry, am I missing anything?
No, Erica, you're doing quite well. If I may, Mr. Chairman, Members of the planning board, this is Jerry Blanchett, and I'm project manager with the H.L. Turner Group. And as Erica had mentioned, this particular application involves the owner, R.J. Kelly, and EMD Millipore Sigma Corporation has signed a lease for this particular project, primarily because they have exceeded their capability in terms of square footage at 17 Cherry Hill. So the project itself at 54 Cherry Hill is a 10-acre lot, and approximately 67 or so thousand feet is the size of the existing building, and about 58,000 feet or so, which is the right-hand side of the drawings you've been seeing. So currently, where Millipore is planning to occupy the building, and what you see now on the screen is actually a perspective from the back of the building. You've seen a couple of the aerial photographs, and Erica explained the fact that we're going to have a raised platform with open steel metal grating where the mechanical units are sitting on, and the top of the metal grating will be about 11.2 feet above grade. That will allow us to get into the building at the appropriate location to feed all of the clean rooms. The project will have a significant amount of clean rooms in order to make the product that Millipore is producing. And so, as Erica already explained, we were very sensitive with impervious existing surfaces to make sure that the future surfaces are at least a zero net gain, and we've accomplished that. What you see in this perspective, by the way, on the left-hand side are actually two dumpsters that are on an existing paved area that the project plans on having as part of its overall scope. And so I know Erica mentioned that we're requesting some waivers from the major modification portion of the application. And at this point, we respectfully request that you review this, grant waivers if possible, and also provide any conditional approval so that the project can move forward. So having said that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I thank you, and here to field any questions. We do have a few folks here from Millipore as well who are here to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, John, I think you're muted.
Dude, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Peg, can we start with you with questions?
I think I'd like them to list the waivers for us so everybody can hear them.
Yes, ma'am. So we are not making any changes to the existing landscape. So we're requesting a landscape waiver as well as a utility waiver. I've already requested and submitted to the electrical department for a new transformer as we reuse the existing pipe and the existing pad. So we wouldn't be making any changes to underground utilities besides the new transformer that the electrical department would be supplying to us. The grading and draining stormwater plan, we are not, as Jerry and I have both stated, we're not changing the amount of impervious surfaces. We're trying to create a net zero. So we're requesting a waiver for that as well. And the lighting and photometric plan, we're making no current changes to the exterior lighting at this time. So are requesting a waiver for the lighting and photometric plan as well.
Okay. I saw that you had approval from the electrical department already. Have we heard from engineering? Josh or David?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, we did. We received comments end of Friday. They sent us 3 kind of comments. It was they were requesting a couple just kind of plan submittal type items. And those 3 items that engineering division has requested are going to be are currently conditions in the certificate of action, and that's in the board packet provided to the board.
I can list them if I have it open, but it was erosion control.
Okay,
It was erosion control during our demolition. They asked if we would provide clarity on our sheet C1.2 regarding which access road option will be used. But there's actually only one, but we'll make sure that that's very clear. And the applicant shall confirm any chemicals, oils, or refrigerant used will have a correlating spill prevention plan, which we're already working on. So all three of those items we can have prepared, hopefully by the end of this week or beginning of next.
okay. Well, I don't have any problem with this. As I said, I saw everybody but engineering had commented on the sheets that I received, and I believe that you're really not doing much more than just swapping one out for another. So I have no problem.
Okay, thanks, Peg. Lou, questions?
Yes, just so with respect to the engineering comments, and I guess that this is more of a planning question. So so it's listed as part of as a condition. So as a result, that so frankly, anything that's worked on in the next week, in essence, has to be to engineering satisfaction. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Lou. So what usually happens for this, if there's a condition on changing the diameter of a pipe size, say from 6 inches to 8 inches or something like that, the applicant will revise the plan and present it to the planning department and the engineering department, and we'll keep that as the official record copy.
Thanks. And I had one other question with respect to the electric division. I guess indicated that they needed to move some vegetation that were too close. That was too close. Is anything going to be relocated, or is it just going to be removed? I think there were some shrubs.
Yes, so currently the landlord or previous leasee has some shrubs that are right up at the existing pad, and our plan is they need to be 12 feet off from the transformer, which they're not, to allow access. And our plan would be to remove those and move them at the appropriate lengths to still try to cover the pad. However, right in front is a sidewalk, so we're just going to have to figure out a little bit how to do that so that there's still access to the sidewalk, but also trying to just keep the same camouflage, for lack of a better term, around that transformer pad. But in order to do the work, we do have to remove the trees because they are right in front of, the shrubs are right in front of the transformer.
Okay, but so there is still a plan though I guess so there's still a plan to replace the shrubs, at least to the extent you're able to do so.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's Mr. Chair, that's the last question I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
What type of decibel level will the HVAC units give off? Do you know? Will there be a tremendous amount of sound coming from the units?
We do get all the units with double wall insulation, and currently they're the same units or similar units to what we have at 17. Off the top of my head, I can't give you the decibel level combined, but I can find that out for you. But it shouldn't be louder than there were 8 units that were there currently, so it shouldn't be any louder than what was there currently, but I will find that out.
Okay, so we're swapping out 8 units for 5, and we're going to put back the landscaping around it to shield it from neighbors?
Yep, the only neighbor is the Beverly Airport, and there is no, except for in the front, I'm sorry. So yes, we would replace the trees or reuse or try to keep the trees in the same proximity to the pad.
Okay. And are those dumpsters new or they're existing? The 2 dumpsters in the back?
They would be new. There's a existing overhead door there that instead of using the dumpsters, the Millipore would put them around the back, and instead of the dumpsters, hopefully in the front. But
so normally when we have those dumpsters are back up to loading docks, essentially? Is that what? Okay. Yeah. I mean, normally with a dumpster, we have a screening requirement, fencing around the dumpsters. just to keep stuff from blowing away? Is everything self-contained in the unit?
Yes, it's a compact. One is a compactor, I believe, and then one would be a covered dumpster. And Millipore has a service that comes in and then removes them, and they still have a cover on them. I think you use some sort of trash chute, or they open so that they can access them. And currently, like the dumpsters that we have screens over them right now.
But you don't show any fencing around those dumpsters, do you?
At this time, we don't have any fencing around the dumpsters because they're changed frequently.
Yeah, are you asking for a waiver on that requirement?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the reason why we have the fencing is to keep people from going in there and throwing stuff in them and or stuff from blowing out into neighboring properties. So have you proposed reasons why you don't need the fencing?
Well, Millipore does operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is a gate across the entrance to that back area, and those dumpsters are behind the building and not visible by the road. But other than that, I don't have anything else in terms of why we're not requesting not to have fencing on those dumpsters.
Okay, but they are totally contained, meaning there's no access to them from the outside?
Correct.
So if someone wanted to, they couldn't throw anything in it, even if they wanted to, like an employee throwing out his old TV or something like that?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Could you just review the waivers you're requesting again? I know Peg asked, but I must have missed it. How many waivers are you asking for?
The landscape plan, the utility plan, the grading and draining stormwater plan, and the photometric plan.
Okay.
So 4.
And just I mean, I can confirm with staff, but isn't there a requirement on the dumpsters also that they be fenced? David?
I believe we have, yep, this is David here. I believe we have a requirement for vegetative screening.
Vegetative screening?
Pretty
For
sure.
For a dumpster, I'm talking about the dumpsters. Normally we have either a slat-like chain link fence or a wooden fence around a dumpster, usually.
Right, an enclosure you're talking about, Jim? Any type of enclosure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm okay with waiving it because it's a fenced-in yard. I think the idea is to keep stuff from blowing into neighbors' properties and people from accessing it. But that's if they have it all contained by fencing, and it's all inside the dumpsters, I'm okay with it. I think if we have to list that as another waiver, we'll just list it.
Right.
So that's all I have, John.
Okay. Tori?
I think this is fine. I have no questions.
So my only question is pertaining to the lighting waiver. There's been sensitivity around lighting in particular. Do we get some level of confirmation from the applicant, David or Josh, that the lighting is in compliance with our standards? How does that work? I know we're not going to get a plan, but usually with the plan, you get some comfort level that the lighting is in compliance.
Sorry, Josh here. Erica, correct? I don't remember a lot of or even new lighting being proposed here. Is that correct?
You cut out for a second, but at this time, there's existing lighting on the building, and we're not proposing any changes to it. However, we can, if there is, I didn't see it in the documentation, but if there is a certain level that the town requires, we can review what's currently there. We didn't have a lot of information going in on the existing building conditions, and we can create a plan of what's there, and then we can submit it if it needs to have improvements.
Okay, I'm more sensitive to the improvements is fine, but I'm more sensitive, and again, your abutters are a little bit different, that there's no distractions or concerns from abutters about lighting our facility. So, I mean, if I just want to make sure it's compliant with our standards. I mean, I know that you're not changing anything, but I hope it's in compliance. That was my only question. David, so Josh, how do we confirm that? Just for point of information.
Well, for this applicant, we could have Erica inquire about I guess it would be a lumen and a spread for the existing lights on site. Again, the waiver was just for supplying the photometric, which we only usually get with new lighting, so.
Yeah. Okay. I can get comfortable.
Yeah. As Eric had mentioned, we could potentially have the applicant provide a lighting plan of the existing lighting, which, if that would suffice to the board.
Does anyone else on the board share any concern around lighting that I raised? I mean, if it's
Mr. Chair, John.
Yep.
Yeah. This is Lou. I also sort of share your concern. I mean, I guess is there. Because understanding that they indicated in the application that they were making no change to exterior lighting, but it's true. It still begs the question as to whether or not it's in compliance. I mean, is that something? Can we add that as a? I don't want to over-regulate it. Can we add it as a condition in a similar way that we have that they're required to address the concerns from engineering?
We could do that. I guess one point of clarification, would we be looking for a photometric plan or just confirmation on what the existing lights are putting out?
For me, it would be confirmation of the existing lights.
Yeah.
Okay. We could put a condition in asking for confirmation of the existing lighting with ensuring compliance through staff. So if it's outside of the acceptable levels, they can be changed.
Okay. I like that idea. Any other comments around the lighting from the other board members?
I just want to ask what's driving the concern about the lighting? Is this concern for abutters or?
Yeah, it's come up with other applications with abutters in particular. Doesn't happen all the time, Tori, but there's usually some concern about how the lighting's going to affect the abutters.
Thank you. Just wanted to know for my own education.
Yeah. Okay. With that tweak, is there a motion to accept this application as presented with the follow-up items that are going to be provided and approved by the staff? Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is that a second from you, Peg?
yes.
Okay, so let me just do the roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. So I just want to make sure that the applicant and the staff are clear of what's required moving forward so we can allow this work to be done. David and Josh, you guys clear and the applicant clear of
I think
what the next step is?
I think for staff, we're clear. It would be satisfying the 3 conditions that we placed in the certificate of action from the engineering division, and then confirming existing lighting on site with any changes needed. We'll go through staff to make the lighting compliant. Erica, was that your understanding as well?
Yes.
So I just asked the applicant, are you comfortable with those conditions, those requirements as we move forward?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much.
So David, could I turn it over to you? You wanted to have a conversation around the upcoming zoning discussions for a future town meeting. So why don't I turn it over to you to kind of walk the board through what's being proposed and kind of what the timeline is.
Sure. Yeah, thanks very much. And thanks for bearing with us over the last week trying to get these links out. I guess the first thing I did want to confirm, did everybody receive the material? Was everybody able to access it?
Yes, at least I was. The second time, I was able to get it the second time.
Okay.
I was as well, second time too, yes.
Okay, great. And I know I got an email from Tori saying he could access it. So with that, I think I just wanted to go over, well, first, any questions or concerns the board may have. One being, is staff on the right track in terms of where we think these are going? And two, to go over the timeline, and I'll take the timeline portion first. So what we would be looking at is having a fall town meeting, I believe targeting the third week in November. So I know we've been talking about zoning for a little bit now prior to the land use summit, but given the way these things have to be advertised and the public hearing requirements, we may have to start talking about them quite a bit in advance. So hopefully my hope is that we can open the public hearings on September 22nd. And that may be with little public interest, or that may be within a significant portion of public interest. I intended, if it's okay with the board, to do a fairly brief PowerPoint presentation for each of the articles. Some it's going to be more intensive than the others, obviously, just to walk everybody through what's going on and what we're looking at, and then take any questions from the public. Obviously, we'll have to go with what happens that evening. For some of these, it's largely an administrative change. I think at least two in here that are literally adding an exemption for headers and page numbers, and another one just inserting the powers of the planning board into one section of the bylaw. It was just something we found was missing. So those are pretty straightforward and easy ones. And again, I think as we said at the land use summit, some of them are more intensive to go through for sure. And I don't expect everybody to be fully up to speed on those this evening. But again, willing to take questions. We did receive today, just so you all are aware, another owner's petition for property outer Maple Street. I think the addresses are around the 500 Maple Street, so quite a bit out there. So between that and the MassDOT owner's petition, we'll have two of those, as well as the necessary update to animal husbandry. So we have three articles really that sort of need to happen, which are not really to do with modernizing or streamlining the bylaw. The rest, at least we think, are general updates that probably should be made going forward, given how everything's been going with the board and general updates over time. So with that, I can go through each of these and kind of explain their nature, or just free to take questions as you all see fit. I just wanted to put it out there to put it on everybody's radar that probably from the next meeting here on out, we'll be doing public hearings for zoning.
All right, since this is being televised, Davey, why don't you do a high-level overview of each one, okay? Then we get into some questions in the timeline.
Yep, sure. So I have an administration section on section 2, and I can pair that with the section I'm calling enumeration, which are doing exactly what I mentioned previously, adding an exemption for headers and titles that staff can make to the zoning bylaws without going back to town meeting. So for instance, right now, if a table number is incorrect, it just happens over time. We would have to go back to town meeting to get that changed each and every time. If we change that up going forward, things like pagination, titles, or headings can be just made in the bylaw, and we'll republish the bylaw, repost it on the website saying, changed in whatever the date was. The animal husbandry update, I think you're all fairly familiar with. That is an update to definitions of, I think it's currently called animal keeping. We want to change that to the keeping of animals, and that dovetails with regulations put forth by the Board of Health. So as it stands now, the zoning is pretty heavy on regulating animals in our bylaw, and we'd like to make it light on regulating animals, with the emphasis being at the Board of Health level, given that they have the expertise on how many animals to keep, what the facility should be like, and how those are kept. So they have a whole set of regulations they have already put forward, and we just need to clean up the zoning piece of that. I have another article called Character-Based Zoning District Cleanup. I do realize I didn't get anything into that folder yet. We're attempting to work with Ted Brovitz, or the original drafter of that, to clean up some, frankly, grammatical errors in headings and title changes, which does seem silly, I'll admit, now that I just said we could update those going forward if successful, but should for any reason the administration or the numeration articles fail, I'd still like to be able to update those regardless. And that was really for, frankly, staff and the applicants working through that large section of the bylaw to ensure that all the cross-references were correct. There's a fairly large proposal to update the cluster development section, so that's special permitting for something alternate to a conventional subdivision. I have a staffer in my office, Ms. Georgia Pendergast, who's been working away at that. She's been on it for quite a while, looked at numerous towns, and we think we have a pretty good proposal going forward, but obviously it's still in draft form, subject to change based on public input and the board's review. Section 40, the definition section, will need to be updated as we have a few new definitions, some simply based from the cluster bylaw update, but one of the main points we wanted to do, there was a very large definition section in section 22, the Maple Street zoning overlay section. So you're about halfway through the book and then you kind of stumble on about 4 or 5 pages of definitions. Since we just updated the character-based zoning districts, we thought it prudent to put those definitions with all the rest of the definitions in the zoning bylaw. So a lot of the red line updates you'll see are things from section 22 that just got moved and then alphabetized to where they need to go based on the definitions. There are some new ones, original ones, like I said, due to a couple other changes in the bylaw, but the bulk of them are coming from Maple Street. The MassDOT's owner's petition is a petition for property at the corner of Armory and Dayton Street, I believe. I can look on the map. There's a map. There's a map in the packet, actually, I believe. And they are asking to have that, what looks like a portion of the right-of-way, but it turns out is not, rezoned to highway corridor. So, which is, everything else around there is already zoned highway corridor, so it's not out of the blue for them to ask for that. Clearly, I think the intent would be that MassDOT wants to dispossess it, but they're asking for the rezone, and we'll take it as it comes. And then the last update was to the site plan review section, section 4. There's a lot of changes in here, some shifting around, and then some items going to the regulation book that we have, things that were more design standards. There's a lot of design standards in the current site plan module, mostly to deal with landscaping. So we like those, we do want to keep those. But I think we were the intent was to keep the bylaw more the enabling language and have the design specific standards to a book of regulations that the planning board can update. Other than that, there's changes to what we call triggers to what applies to site plan, and then some changes to effectively the different levels. So right now we have 3 tiers of site plan review. We're trying to bring that down to 2. So that's it at a very high level.
Okay.
And then again, the timeline would be September 22nd, and then the 2 meetings in October likely to be public hearing meetings. I think after that, we'll see where we're at. And if the first meeting in November, if we still need to continue those, then we can do that. Ideally, I'd like to be slightly wrapped up or mostly wrapped up by then, just because that's getting a little late in the game, but I think we're in pretty good shape so far.
Okay, good. That's a good overview.
Thanks.
So I'll bring it back to the board for specific questions for David. Jim, do you have any questions for David?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Lori?
I just haven't had enough time with this material to formulate questions.
Okay. Lou, any initial questions?
Yeah, just one, and David, I'm not sure if you gave I might have missed it, but I think you might have skipped over the civic space.
Yes.
And I want to see if you could just sort of
Sure. Yep.
hum a few bars about that.
Thank you for being on point, Lou. Yeah, the Civic Space District is an interesting one. We did just touch on it at the Land Use Summit. Effectively, what that is a proposal to put town-owned land into its own zone, which would allow municipal uses. Those aren't as extremely limited as it sounds. However, things like schools, the library, a lot of parks that people know and love currently are either zoned commercial area or residential area, or some of them industrial, depending on how the town acquired the property. Which, at least from a planning perspective, sort of sends the message that the town's looking to do something with those properties. For instance, Endicott Park, I know, was once part of a proposed subdivision, which is why we have the park in the first place. However, the zoning hasn't really changed since then, so it's on paper, on the map, it still looks as though is that you have a very large parcel ripe for residential development, when in fact it's owned by the town. And this wouldn't foreclose the town's options to dispossess. It would really just be a clarification of what's allowed under current zoning. You know, should the town want to do something with that property going forward, they could do that. It would obviously have to go to town meeting, but it doesn't foreclose that opportunity. It's just kind of cleaning up all of the various types of parcels that we've acquired, the town's acquired over the last 60, 70 years.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. And then just in terms of the cluster development, I noticed there was a lot of red line there. So if that's something, I assume that you're, I know it was mentioned at the land use summit that there were concerns about sort of the workability of the current procedures. So I assume that the revisions are for the eye to sort of improve that.
Yeah, that's correct. Allowing some more flexibility. We'll have two different development types, one being specific to what's commonly known as lotting out the development, so more like a traditional subdivision, and another that would allow for the creation of a homeowners association. It would give you a little bit more flexibility in design, and that there wouldn't be individual lot lines within the development necessarily. There could be exclusive use areas if they're setting it up as a condominium association, but just a little bit more flexibility outside of the rigidity of lay out your 50-foot right of way and lot the lots out. There's obviously still that option conventionally, but this allows at least two other options that we're looking for. Hopefully, some of them would allow less environmental impact than a conventional subdivision, which I think is the original intent of the state law, which is where Danvers is based in, the current bylaw. So,
okay. Great. Thanks very much. I look forward to talking more about it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Peg, did you have any questions for David?
No further questions. I did go through the material, and I think your comments that you just made are going to make it a little bit more helpful going forward. There's a lot of red line.
Yeah, hopefully going forward we can have some more pictures too.
And I'm glad to hear that you didn't put the CBZ. I was going to email you because I had nothing in the file, and I went, didn't get that one.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
But no more questions at this time.
Yeah, I mean, my only question, David, the last two cluster zoning or cluster plans presented, and since I've been on the board, it's only been two. One of them we turned down because it didn't have the supermajority vote, and then the other one, the whole board was supportive of the cluster zoning, but the applicant didn't like the conditions. So are we struggling getting people to look at this cluster zoning in a positive way? Is that why we're going to kind of tweak some of this?
In my opinion as a planner, I think so. Again, I had some informal discussions with both of those developers actually. The way the bylaw is currently laid out, you need a very, very large parcel to make it really work from a development standpoint, to make it worth your while.
Okay.
For instance, like the last one, the site could be significantly constrained, which is sort of why you're looking to stay away from those areas that would otherwise not be developed. But again, on paper, both just the way it's laid out, it's highly specific. It's not that different from the conventional. So there's only so much work you can do from, say, the engineer's point of view or a landscape architect's point of view to design the site to minimize those impacts. And again, most of those impacts that you want to minimize come with a cost savings. So
yeah.
From a development standpoint, there would be a reason to apply for that. And then from the town's perspective, at least the macro level of the town, it would be, saving some green space and minimizing impacts to abutters in the environment.
Okay. So that I look forward to the conversation too. So, before we get to the minutes, I just had a couple questions for staff that people have asked me, going through other communities, it looks like Danvers really didn't do much. Well, much is probably the wrong enough to promote restaurants and outside seating compared to some of our abutting communities. Comment how that worked. I mean, is it just the nature of the individual restaurants on Maple Street and Elm Street that it just didn't look like could we have done more? Let me just ask you that question, David.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, we probably could have done a little bit more. To your other point, though, I think that where most of a significant portion of the restaurants that are located that people know and see every day downtown, one thing that they're lacking is parking spaces that they actually own. So a lot of the permits that we did receive applications for, they already had existing parking lots, things like Supino's or some of the larger lots or the larger sites out on Route 1. So we did allow the option to essentially take over parking spaces downtown on the street.
Yeah.
But again, the liability would go onto the restaurant owner at that point to, ensure everything was safe and accessible, meaning ADA compliant as well, to get out to those seats if they didn't have enough sidewalk space. And to be honest, I think where we ended up was the regulations at the state level kept changing so much that by the time we got further enough along in the process, the state was actually allowing you to open up and operate indoors. So the number of applications that we started getting dropped off after that pretty significantly. So we do have some still in the works, some pending. I know Blue Karma recently just put some outside seating out. So we were working with them for quite a bit. They're looking to expand their restaurant anyway. So this kind of stopped that process for them. And then they had to shift over to, well, how do we do outside seating? So they've managed to figure it out, thankfully. But again, with the zoning change that we had, I think everyone was gearing up for internal expansions and expansions of businesses, and then it completely shifted the other way, where how do we get out of the building? So,
well, I know, kind of the vision is to drive foot traffic, and I'm more concerned about some of the comments around the downtown, right? I mean, I had the experience just to go into the North End. It's amazing what the North End did, right? To keep, the economic viability of that restaurant trade viable. And I think Beverly, in particular, did a pretty good job as well. So, I just throw that out. I mean, we're not out of the woods, right?
Yeah.
Just was wondering if there was any feedback from the restaurant owners, or what, the town could have done more. So just an observation. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Sure.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up to the board, one last thing. The BJ site, they're putting a new gasoline service there. Did that come back to the board for site plan approval? I don't remember seeing that. Maybe I was on vacation.
we did. They came back. It was
the fall of 2019, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last November, December 2019, I would say.
Okay. Because they're moving pretty rapidly over there, and it was just that site in particular. I mean, I go there. It's just a tough site to get in and out of. I don't know what improvements were going to be made to improve the traffic pattern there, but if it's already been discussed, I was just more curious. So I don't remember seeing it.
Sure, we can get you any of the information if you want.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
That'd be great. The last issue I just wanted to bring up to the board. David's made me aware that the Conservation Commission is going to start conducting live meetings. Personally, I think
they want to discuss it. Sorry.
Oh, they want to discuss it. Okay.
I don't want to mislead anybody.
Okay. So I just wanted, I want to just, again, I've asked this before, and I know the board has been comfortable with the way these meetings are being conducted. And from my perspective, I think we've made a lot of progress since we started. And is there still a feeling that, well, let me ask it a little. Does anyone feel that we need to start conducting these in person back at the town hall? Personally, I think it's still too early. I don't think we can all say that we're out of the woods here. And one of the things that we've talked about in the past that makes it difficult for the planning board is if you get a controversial application, you could get 50 to 100 people potentially coming into that facility, and how we control the interaction gets complicated. I guess it's the responsibility of the planning board and the staff to make sure the people who participate in a meeting like that are safe. Comments, are people comfortable, continue to be comfortable, and maybe we, bring it up, once a month. I know we have a responsibility to advertise our meetings, and, if we're going to start potentially shifting, we got to give David and his staff time to properly post the future applications. So can I just open that up for just anyone's observations and comments? Jim, you've been on the board, you and Peg the longest. I mean, how do you feel this is going?
Well, I'm surprised that the decision would be up to us, John. I mean, we're using a town building, but we're going to have a town meeting, open to the public. So I'm not sure we can make that decision. I'd be shocked if we could. Town hall, I mean, I don't know if they're all working there presently, or I think David had mentioned they're coming back in the next couple of weeks. So, I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with masks. I mean, I see clients every day with masks, and we take their temperature, and, I'm fine with meeting, but I'm not sure we're the ones who are going to make that decision. I think it's up to the town manager probably to allow people in the building,
Okay. Yep.
I would think.
How do you feel that the remote meeting's going? I mean, it's not, I understand we would all like to be back in feeling safe in that environment, but how do you feel it's gone as one member who's been, on the planning board a very long time?
I think it's going well as we can do it. I mean, I like you said, if we were to have a meeting, we'd probably have to go to bigger meeting space like Holton Richmond, just to space people. But I'm fine either way. I think after we had a couple bumps with the audience participation question, I think we've resolved that by opening up to a larger audience with the WebEx. So, I'm fine either way.
Okay.
So,
Peg, how do you feel?
I love the live meetings, but I'm not sure about my participation. Since December, I have been in 2 stores, and that's it. I don't know where I could sit. I obviously wear masks all the time. But, I mean, I'd have to try to find a way to do it. But I'm still basically told to stay away from gatherings, and I take my walks. And that's about it. I can play golf now.
Good,
So,
good. No, I hear you.
I don't know. I mean, I think this is going better than I expected. When we first started out, I did not like it at all. And as I said, I really do like the participation of having live audience in front of us. But again, I'm just one person. I have a concern, a health concern right now. So.
No, and that's legitimate. So, Lou, as a newer member, how do you feel it's going?
Well, I feel it's been going, it's been going well as expected. And I think, as others have mentioned, I think ideally, I mean, the live meeting, you do miss something. I've had people come to me, telling me that they missed the live meeting. But it's, I think that I think the way it's currently done, I think has been going well. I think that since we've made the revision, changes and the tweaks so that the participation is better, I think that's so that people can more readily participate. I think that's really good. I would be just concerned, I've also been, careful because also having an elderly parent, I'm concerned as well about exposure, about getting, I try to minimize the extent that I do go out, but it's, if we did end up going back to an in-person setting, I think it would have to be in a larger space like Holton Richmond. And I would really want to make sure that there was that mask use was enforced, because I know that I've seen some meetings that, you know, you see people and and it's indoors and the members are not wearing masks, and people who are speaking aren't wearing masks necessarily either.
Yeah.
So that would be a concern that I would have if we did go to in person, that indeed people did, you know, sort of, you know, follow the protocols.
Yep.
So. Okay,
that's good feedback.
Yep.
Tori, how do you feel? You know, I mean, obviously you never even got the benefit of a live meeting.
Yeah, no, this is what I know of planning board. I feel like we've addressed the concerns about participation very well. I've heard no feedback otherwise. I would be very concerned about the kind of issues that we've recently dealt with that have drawn a lot of concern from neighbors, even in the room at large, is Holden Richmond. Potentially a lot of people speaking passionately about things that mean a lot to them in a relatively small space. If we got 100 people in there, doesn't feel very safe to make. And I would also like to withhold judgment on any of these decisions until a couple of weeks after school has started to see if that's impacting rate.
Yeah, that's good feedback. So, you know, what I like to suggest, why don't we continue on the way we've been doing it, and just, you know, David, when we reach certain once a month, we'll just talk this out again, right, and see where we're at.
Sure.
You know, I think it's a little bit too early. I do think it has been effective. I mean, it's not perfect, but I give you guys a lot of credit. We made some adjustments. It seems like the requirements of what we have to do, we're not holding up applicants. So, you know, as we sit here now, I'd like to continue it on and revisit it maybe towards the end of October. I like Tori's suggestion. I mean, I just don't think we're out of the woods. I really don't. I hope we are, but you know, we'll see when the fall comes. And then if you and the town manager feel that you know, we need to bring it up quicker than the end of October, then let me know. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Why don't we go? We have 2 minutes for approval. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes for? Let's start with the July 28th special meeting. I know, Jim, you weren't able to attend that, but Peg, Lou, and Tori, are you guys comfortable with the minutes as written?
Yeah, that's fine.
I make a motion, we approve the July 28th special meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion, okay, by Peg, and Tori seconds. So let me just do the roll call. Lou?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
Jim, I guess you're abstaining, right?
Abstaining, yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor of the minutes as written. So motion carries. The next one is the minutes of August 25th, 2020. It looks like the entire membership was there. Any questions on the minutes of August 25th?
I had one question.
Yep.
And this is just more of a note here on page 1 of the minutes. This is related to 188 Elliott Street. 3rd line on the first paragraph, it's a reference to the representatives from the church, and it has Tim Clayton and Dano Jankovic, church member. I think we probably want to add something in there, even just a parentheses or something, that Tim Clayton is the rector of the church.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
Okay.
And that was all.
Any other comments? Okay, is there a motion to accept the minutes with the minor edit?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, so let me just do the roll call. Jim?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'm also in favor of the minutes. So David, have we caught up on outstanding minutes?
So where we're at, late in the game, admittedly, it was today, I got in the August 11th minutes, but so they're complete from staff's end. Obviously, you haven't had a chance to review them yet. The only other outstanding item we have, which another staffer is working on, is the July 14th. So those should be completed soon. So next meeting, you should be looking at three sets, and then we're all caught up.
Okay. Excellent. Any other matters to bring up from the board? If not, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All right, last polling. Jim?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Tori?
Yeah.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'm in favor for adjournment. So thanks everyone for their good work and stay safe.
Take care.
Thank you,
too.
everyone.
Take care.
Have a good night.